I'm a loser. It's so difficult as a 41-year-old immigrant who has been here for 20 years to say these words. I came here with a lot of ambition, a lot of passion, a lot of zeal to succeed. I had a lot of purpose and I had big plans. And the way my life was going in my first few years of getting to the UK, where I am now, is very far from where I find myself currently.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kamga Reacts. Today's video is going to be this video. Title is Feeling Trapped as an Immigrant Abroad with No Exit Plan. Living the 9 to 5 metrics, leaving 9 to 5 metrics. My name is Kamga. If this is the first time that you're meeting me on this video, I'm glad to have you. I make videos like this where I react to things that I find interesting. You might find other videos with Ethiopian music and different countries' music. And also, I like to talk about things that I find personally interesting. I live in the US, left Cameroon a couple of years ago, and I've been here for the past 6-7 years. So when I saw this video on my timeline, I thought, well, I don't know much about the UK, but I understand what it feels like to be trapped as an immigrant. And I haven't watched all the video. I think I've watched about the first 2 minutes, and I wanted to actually have my real-time reaction to the video in real time. So I'm going to watch the video. By the way, this is a reaction video. So what this means is that I will have to pause the video and comment on the video. All right. When I started doing reaction videos, I hear comments like, hey, let the video play, finish it all. First, I think if you want to watch the full video, go ahead and watch on this person's channel. I'm going to put a link there. You can watch the full video without my comments. And if I just copied that video and put on my channel, that will not be fair. It will be unfair use if there's such a thing. So it's going to be fair use. We're going to go ahead and get on with the video. So let's see what this lady has to talk about.
I made such progress in a very short time, and my trajectory was just upwards. In less than a week, I got myself my national insurance number. I just went to a local catering company, registered as a silver service agent, and I got my NI number in 5 days. Most of my peers did not even know what that meant. That's how focused I was, and I had a list of things I had to accomplish. 2 weeks.
Oh, and by the way, if you don't see any ads, it's because I use YouTube Premium. I don't have an ad blocker. I think someone who puts out content and shares genuine material like this should at least get paid for it. The video actually has let me see how many views does this video have. I think it has over 100,000 views, maybe not. I think you'll probably get some more. Oh, 19,000. So, and it was posted, today's the 6th, so yesterday. So I think you'll probably go higher than that because it's a topic that I think many people will relate to. I personally relate to it, even though I'm not in the UK. So let's continue watching.
Weeks later, I got my provisional driving license. I knew that I had to settle. But in all of this, I had no plans of being here 20 years later. All I knew was I came like a postgrad student to get my education, get a job anywhere in the world, and the sky will be my limit. But to go through the difficult first few years as a student, to pay £12,000 in 12 months with only an initial deposit that I knew that I had to hustle. After having my NI number, my professional driving license, I went and secured myself my first job in less than 3 weeks. This was obviously part-time like a student in the Royal Mail. And again, that was a different story. I can tell you guys how that came very quickly, and the day after I lost it. But there were bigger plans for me, I can say. Because after that, I had my first retail part-time job, which worked around my schedule. And then a few weeks later after that, I got myself my first customer service job working for an insurance and financial company. And guess what? I did these 2 part-time jobs while doing a full-time master's program. It took me...
I'm going to pause there and say this. Many people who travel out of the country don't understand what it's like. And I'm saying this from my own experience of trying to explain to people what it feels like to be here if you've been an adult out of the Western world. In the sense that, and I think it's even gotten worse now in 2025. A few years ago, if you traveled, CNN was a thing. Once you get that, you can begin working and make some pretty good money. And ideally, you'll use that as a way to save money to move to a different job. But things have changed. I think a lot of things have even gotten worse since 2019. It's just gone downhill across the board. And what she's explaining is a typical journey. You move to the country, you get that first job, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know how the roads are working, you don't know how to interact with people, all that stuff. And getting her number in 5 days, similar to getting, I think, a social security in the US, right? Once you have that number, you can work. There's so many people who are not able to do a lot of things because they don't have that number. And coming as a postgraduate means she's probably finished her degree. She might have worked, maybe. And she comes from places that she's able to actually come to the country and then begin to, go to school and work. So she's doing 2 part-time jobs on a master's program in 24 hours. Okay, like just hands down, you shouldn't feel like a loser. With this intro of what you've had to do so far, I think we need to reconsider what the word loser means in this context, because I'm not yet seeing it. If you think you're a loser after working this hard, there are people who have these opportunities and they don't use them. There are people who come to these countries and they expect other people to carry them on their backs. So no, I don't think you're a loser. Just straight up.
18 months, and that helped me to pay my fees, although I still had a big chunk after that. But when I looked at how things were going, I had some big plans. I started looking for jobs everywhere because I did a master's in international relations, so I knew that I could work anywhere. I looked for a few jobs, but it was hard, and everybody kept saying, you need to settle down. You need to first of all have your papers in this country so that if anything went wrong, you could always come back. And that seemed like the best advice at the time. So immediately I put my...
I'm suspecting some foreshadowing here where this idea of getting papers set her on a path where she probably made some decisions that got her to stay there longer than she might have wanted. But let's carry on.
My search for my ideal job in the back burner, and I started looking for a way to get myself legal in the UK. And this is a story that a lot of immigrants face. When you come here with big ambitions, very quickly they get crushed when the reality sets in. The reality where you feel like you are less of a citizen because you're not British. We used to see jobs back then and they say you have to have no restrictions on your immigration. And then you think this job is a fantastic job. Why do I want to go back abroad? Why do I want to go back home? And then you find yourself settling. You do whatever it takes to get your papers. Some people got married. Some people had to. You do anything possible.
I could give a whole essay on the things that people do to get here. There are people, I think there's even a documentary on YouTube about people crossing the forests, the waters to get to the US from the border. And that's just to get in. When those people are in, now they try to find all kinds of ways to get that document, to get papers, to get a work authorization, to get a social security. A lot of times you can't describe to someone who is not in the US the pain you go through to get that documentation. They will tell you, hey, let me get there. I'll get there first. I'll figure it out when I get there. Like, let me come to the US and find out. And what she's describing is what if people could truly comprehend what they leave and the time that they spend just to try to regularize yourself in this country, in these countries, not just here, people might reconsider why they're doing what they're doing.
To make sure that you're settled. And that's where we did not know that was the first trap to get you to stay here. It's not a bad thing at all. Don't get me wrong, the UK has been beautiful for me. I have built a family. I have a family of 6 now with 4 beautiful kids. But what has it done to me, and how has it killed my ambition and made me feel like I'm a loser? It's trapped me in a way that I cannot even tell you. I did not only get my master's, I got my first job and I worked in telecoms, which was a decent job. But I still felt like this is not the life that I knew, because my parents studied here and moved back, so I knew that was the right thing to do. For many reasons. When I had my first child, I was very, very depressed. I was very low because I had no help. It was very cold. It could get really gloomy in the winter. And just the lack of flexibility. I saw a lot of my friends who took the bold step to move back home after studying. They were living the life I could only dream of. You know, when you see your friends back home living a good life, it hits different from you here. They just get up in the morning, they have help, the weather is good, the kids are in schools that private schools that they can actually afford. They just have the family around them, and they can bring up the kids in the way that they want with little or no intrusion from the government like we do here. If you're African or a foreigner, you know what I mean. We have
See, so she just listed in one breath the difficulty of raising children with I don't say the African norms. I feel like the African norms have changed a lot these days. So when you look at young people, African or not, the world is just changing in massive ways. But one thing that she's described that I think we need to really hone in on is you don't get the assistance that you would like to get as a young parent when you have a child out of the country unless you already have parents and people who are willing to give that helping hand. Europe, at least from my observation, the US, from my experience, you don't get a lot of that. You don't get a lot of people actually coming in. I don't have kids yet. So a lot of that is something that I've always watched that people see and do. And I'm like, oh yeah, by the time we get children, this is going to be a problem. This is going to be an issue. I remember watching a video recently from Kev on stage where he was reacting to somebody complaining about the price of, what's it called? Daycare. The person was basically saying, wow, daycare is $800. And Kev on stage was saying, yeah, when he had his first child, it costs what? So it costs less for him to live in an apartment than for him to send his child to daycare. So the price of paying daycare on a monthly basis was way more than what they paid for rent in their apartment. And when he had the second child, they were living in a house. What they paid for their mortgage was less than what they paid for their two kids in daycare. And that's daycare. That's not even nanny. That's not the cost of everything else, right? It's just daycare. So yeah, financially speaking, it's expensive. So imagine you're a mom or a dad or a parent, and then you have to go to work. You don't get a lot of maternity, paternity leaves. Different companies have different policies for that. Some companies will tell you have 2 weeks. Can you imagine? Just give birth to your child, and in 2 weeks you're supposed to go back to work. Who takes care of that child? Who? How do you wean them? How do you feed them? So, what she's describing is the reality of many people, especially Africans, because when you've been raised in a certain environment as an African child and you grow up, because I left Cameroon when I was in my 20s, I was in my late 20s when I moved. So it's not as if I came and started picking up the language and things here. I came with my understanding of the way things worked, marriage, family, and all that. So it was a big shift, and still is a big shift for me to understand that no, things here are a little bit different in that particular domain. So if she left after her degree to do her master's program, then she probably already had an idea of how she would like her family to be. And the reality was changing. And then now, when you're by yourself, it's different. When you're by yourself, you can make a lot of changes. You can travel, you can move, you can even take some risks in terms of starting a business, traveling across. But once you start partnering, now you have a husband or a wife. Once you start having those kids, it gets a lot harder. And I can see how things changed when she got her first child. Yeah.
have a lot of restrictions on how we can bring our kids up. I knew at some point that I could not do this long term. So I took the bold step and I resigned my job in a telecoms company.
Whoa.
After working there for 2 years.
Okay.
And I went home and I started looking for jobs. That's a whole different story, I'll tell you guys.
You have multiple stories,
I attended 4 interviews, and the one that I actually got a job offer, the pay, I can tell you guys that the pay would not even pay for my gas and electric in the UK. But I was too naive to do the proper maths and think about what that would mean for me if I was looking to move back home. It could just be a stepping stone while looking for the ideal job, because that job, I didn't get it because of my qualifications. I just got it because it was like a very easy job to get.
Now, I need to actually hammer on this point. I know somebody who actually started, when he came to the US, he started as a nursing aide. It's a certified nursing assistant, like a nursing aide. I think it's the same thing. I don't know. I'm not sure. But today he works in IT in a very different domain. But like what she's saying, when you know where you're going and you have a plan, and I love that she's sharing this because there are people who are still coming in who don't understand that these things could happen. And I love this idea of sharing your wins and your losses so that other people don't make those mistakes, because I think that no matter what you hear, who you read, or what you listen to, you will still make your mistakes. But there are some mistakes that you shouldn't make. You should just hear from other people and just learn from them. Learn from other people's mistakes, all right? And in this particular case, one of the things I'm hearing that she's sharing is not having the long-term vision of, hey, let me use this job as a stepping stone to get to where I want to go to. Let me actually do the math. How much do I need to go back? And it's something that I think a lot of people struggle with. We have these dreams and goals and these big ideas, no matter what it is, whether in Cameroon, Nigeria, whichever country it is, right? We think of, I want to be financially free, but we don't really think, what does that look like? What are the numbers? What will it actually take for me to be financially free? Because that will require you to look at your budget. How much do you actually spend per month? Do you travel? Do you drive a car? Do you go on holidays? Can you save money in some places? Do you need to increase your income? Because when you actually do the math and start to figure out what do I need to accomplish my goals, financial goals, you start thinking more strategically than just praying and hoping. So I think what she's raising is a very solid point. Doing the math. How much do I need? Okay, this job is giving me X amount. What do I need to get the next job? Do I need a new certification? Do I need a qualification? Should I keep applying? Can I go to a different city? Can I get the same job in a different place at different time to get double income? What can I do to do that? So let's see what she figured out, what she did after that.
But I declined. I felt like I was above that. I deserved more, a bit of pride, a bit of ego. And I came back. And when I came back, I knew this is me. I have to make it work here. So I did everything to make sure I made it work. Now you ask me why I'm feeling like a loser 20 years later. One, I did not expect that I'll have to work for another 25 years. That's the retirement age, 65. So I'm thinking, 20 years later, what do I have to show? Yes, I've got a mortgage, which is the biggest trap ever. Because once you have this mortgage, you have little or no leeway, because you have this big bill and this big commitment, financial commitment, which you have to turn up for every month, like it or not.
I need to make a whole other video here on my other channel talk about this, but you have mortgages, you have college student loans, you have credit card debt, you have those are the three big ones. And I think, yes, credit cards, colleges, mortgage, what else? Anyway, it's I'm laughing because my brother sent me a video literally about 3 days ago where we talk about how the enslavement, that the modern day enslavement is happening. Those are like three big arms of it. You get a big chunk of money from the bank where you pay on a monthly basis. And by the time you finish paying that money, you've paid the bank almost double what you took in the first place. And that's if you stay in that house for the next 30 years, however long the mortgage is. Sometimes 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. It's a whole other conversation, but what she's saying is correct. Long-term debt can be a shackle that holds you to a job, to a location for a long time, because you can't just get up and leave. If you foreclose your house, to the best of my understanding, you don't get any money back. You've lost it. The bank takes it, sells it to whoever can buy it and pays them. Or they sell it and keep the money, whatever it is that they're going to do. So, yeah, when I talk of financial education for people, especially Africans, in fact, everybody, this is the kind of situations that you may find yourself if you don't understand what you're signing on those dotted lines. It's crazy.
Not. Even times that work is difficult, you have no choice because you have to keep this job to pay your mortgage. And the next trap is when you have kids. They're beautiful. I love kids and I have 4 of mine. But when you start having kids abroad, that's the biggest trap. They start going to school, they build a life here, they get older, they know what they want, they'll find it harder to adapt back home. And then this becomes their home. They become first generation immigrant kids who don't have the same fight, the same zeal, the same love for where we come from. And that is the next trap after a mortgage that most of us find ourselves in. The third trap is the career choices that we make. Not all career choices can work back home. If you go into mainstream like things like banking, finance, maybe that's different, accounting. But when you go into the health sector, you go into things like customer services or sales, it's a different kettle of fish back home. It's so hard to find jobs that will pay. Imagine what a doctor earns in the US or the UK and think about what they earn back home. It's a no-brainer. Or teaching, certain jobs just find it harder to adapt. And then you start paying into your pension. You start thinking about your retirement. And then you have the big question that if you move back, what would happen with your kids? Will they move back with you? Where are you moving back to? Do you have a home? Because back home, like it or not, most people want to build themselves a nice home. Not just a home, a nice home, because you've lived abroad for 25, 30 odd years and you need to move big. But how do you do that when you have all the commitments here? You have a mortgage, you have kids, you have day-to-day transactions, you have to cater for, you have a car.
Man, you get
Loan maybe.
you get used to the life in the place. Wherever you are, there is a part of you that just gets very comfortable with the way things work. When I moved here, it took me a while to actually remove Cameroon from my system. And I don't think Cameroon has completely left. There's still a part of me that is almost always comparing things somehow, like, oh, this thing looks different here. Like, the voice gets lower over time, but it's still there. And when you start building a life in a different country, it gets difficult as you start putting those bricks. You include this, you add a mortgage here, you go to school here, you have friends, you have work, you have a routine, you have a doctor, you have a life, you get married, you have your spouse, you have your friends that you visit, you have your Christmas routines. It's very difficult to just uproot yourself and go back, which is why I think when you travel, you need to decide, when am I going back or am I staying here permanently? I think it's something that you need to have a conversation with yourself very early, because that will determine how you would move. You would know how much you save, what you're willing to invest in, what you're willing to not invest in, what you should learn, the kind of jobs that you should take, the kind of people that you should hang out with, how often you should travel back to just make sure that things that you're still rooted to the source. Because if you don't know how long you're going to be somewhere, then you may not take advantage of the opportunities that show up in that place. You may not know when it's time to actually call your chips and get out. So I think what she's expressing here is something that many people don't think about. Lack of financial education, lack of long-term planning, lack of foresight, lack of delayed gratification, saving money instead of trying to keep up with the people around you, because everybody has a different plan. Everybody has a different goal. Everybody has a different thing that they're working on. So if you don't know what your goal is for yourself and your family, you might end up in somebody else's goals, and you don't want that. You don't.
Your kids expect holidays every year. How do you then set aside enough money to get yourself a befitting home back home to suit people's standards? And that's the biggest trap.
To suit people's standards. That right there is the key word. You need, and I don't mean her, I just mean like, you need to have your standard, your personal standard that you set. Because if you're going to go to build a house based on other people's standards, then you've missed the point. Because those people don't have your story, they don't have your goals, they don't have your plans. It's your standard. Set your standard.
And then when you get to like 40, after working for 20 years, and you think that all I've done is paid into a mortgage that interest keeps swallowing, and then you look at your friends back home who earn 1/3 of what you earn, everything taken into account, they're building themselves homes without mortgage loans. They're living better. It's worse when they travel and come here and you see how they're living. The kids are grounded. The kids have a different upbringing. They have a different perspective on life. And then you start asking yourself these questions like me now at 40. Was it all a scam? What do I do? There are options. You can maybe downsize if you don't have a big family size in the UK. Go for a smaller home and hope that somehow you can afford to get yourself a home and build a decent and a modest house, as opposed to what our parents or uncles or people older than us did. They came here and lived in very squalor conditions and built themselves massive homes which they've never lived in. It's been occupied by aunties and uncles or grandparents or people who don't even know our struggles here. And then before you can actually retire, you maybe lost your sense of enjoyment. You can even climb the stairs.
You know, there's so much to dissect in here, and I don't want to keep interrupting because I know that it's interrupting the video. Like I said, it's a reaction video. If you want to watch the full video, the link is going to be there. Go watch it, follow her, like the video, leave your comment on the video there. And the theme that keeps coming up is this idea of not understanding what your path is. When you travel out of the country, decide how long you're going to be there for. If you're going to be there for the rest of your life, then start building the rest of your life there. If you're going to come back, then start making plans to return as often as possible to start building that life there while you're still able to make those trips. Because across the world, right, across the world, what is happening is that people don't understand that there's such a thing as time, that you will get old one day and you will not be able to do the things that you're doing right now. That there will reach a point where the things that you could do, maybe, travel and enjoy and run on the beach, you will not be able to run on the beach when you're 80 years old and your knees hurt because old age. People start working at 18, you're supposed to retire at 65 and enjoy for the rest of their lives. What do you do after 65 if you're not taking care of your body between 18 and 65? Even by then, by God's grace, would you be able to still be alive, one, and then I'll be able to do all the things that you're trying to do? The whole concept of work needs to be redefined. You need to understand what work means to you and how you can actually live a life, because this comparison of this person is living a particular way, we don't know what that person is doing for money, what their plans are, what their goals are, what God's plans are for this person. So we need to live our lives based on what God is telling us to do and how we're supposed to walk in that path. Because if I move to America and I want to go back to Cameroon, let's say I have to go back to Cameroon. Let me say I move when I'm 20. Let's say I move when I'm 20, 25. I'll put my mind like, all right, you know what? I have 5 years to get grounded in this place. I have 5 years to understand this country. I have 5 years to figure things out. And this is if you have papers to actually be there, because the big chunk of your time is going to go to figuring out papers, right? Actually to settle, because it's like your life will not start until you actually settle. And if your life does start and you settle, because not having papers means that you probably not be able to travel out and return. You have to stay there, which is why your plans have to evolve and change based on the situation. But you cannot and you should not compare yourself to people who have different plans, different goals, different aptitudes, different gifts and talents from you. Stick to your own plan. Follow the plan that God has given you for yourself. Stick to your own vision. Have your vision of what you want to do with your life wherever you are. It doesn't matter. I've written about this on my, I'm written articles about it. It doesn't matter where you are. There are certain principles that apply. Having a vision will apply whether in Cameroon or the US. Having an imagination will apply whether in Cameroon or the US. There are things that cut across the board, whether you are on the African continent, in Europe, or America. Understanding these principles and working with them will help you succeed in whatever level it is. But the big one is you don't have time to faff around. You don't have time to waste comparing with people. You don't have time to just enjoy life. I'm not saying that you should work yourself to the bone or that you should never have fun. It's just consider the fact that there will come a time when you can have fun if you're willing to invest time now to become the kind of person who has the skills and aptitudes to earn enough to have fun whenever they want, whatever fun that is. So let me end my rant here. Let's finish the video.
To go to your own home, and you've worked so hard for nothing. Do you want to be that? I don't want to be that. So the realization hit me last year. When I looked around, I thought, if I lose my job today, where do I go to? I have this massive mortgage, and according to the government, I still have about 20 years to pay. Of course, I can pay it quicker if I wanted to, but the way the system is engineered is to keep you in the system. You work hard, paycheck after paycheck. It's a very, very socialist economy, which is great for some people. So you're giving back a lot of what you earn in tax. You're contributing to your pensions, which is a good thing, because if you move back, you can always claim your pensions back. But again, this is not without caveats. When your kids start having kids, your grandkids, where do you want to be? Do you want to be in their lives, or do you want to be back home? There is political unrest back home. Where is the sweet spot? Where is the sweet spot as an immigrant?
There isn't.
Where do you belong?
There
Our
isn't.
kids very, very fully belong in this economy. They've never had our struggles. They might never have our struggles. I get it's difficult talking about this because they don't know, they don't understand what we.
And they won't. They won't understand what you go through. And I say this with the perspective of having, after having tried so many times to explain to my mom certain things that I experienced as a child that I wish I didn't. It just hit me around the end of 2024 that I will never get the understanding that I'm looking for. That trying to communicate to my parents that there were certain things that happened, certain things that they did unintentionally that affected the way that I show up in the world. I realized it was a waste of time. It was a waste of time. They will never get it. And that's okay. And I also know that there are things that my children will never get. It's the beauty of generations. I think it's a wonderful gift where you can watch a whole mass of people and they have no idea how you see the world. And then you can get to connect where they tell you how they see the world and you tell them how you see the world. And I think as African parents, I don't know about the previous generation, but I think this generation, millennials, and we have the opportunity to parent in a way that is different, in a way that is a lot more collaborative, in a way that invites the kids to know their parents so that things like this don't happen. Things where they don't understand the struggles of the parents don't happen. Because I know my parents went through a lot of struggles. Sometimes my mom talks about it, my dad experiences it in different ways, but I never really get a full picture of what it's like. I don't know what it was like when they grew up, right? I mean, inflation and hyperinflation has debased money highly across the African continent and the world in general. And so when they talk about, with 25 francs, you used to be able to get this and this and this. 25 francs today doesn't even get you. I don't know what it gets you. But bottom line is that I don't understand how my parents grew up. And I've not had the opportunity to talk with them. And this part of what she's talking about here is, the distance. Like my parents are not here. So all we have is video calls and phone calls. And so I don't get to fully experience what it's like to be an adult, to be able to communicate with my parents the way that I would have liked if I was there. And I could beat myself up all day. And there are times that I miss that. But the bottom line is that what I have now, I will never have something different unless I change something about it. And the cost of changing that, is it worth it? Let me start spiraling now. Let's finish this video.
We have gone through to give them what we've given them, the sacrifices that we've made. And sometimes to the detriment of even them when the government intervenes sometimes in their upbringing. They are okay. They'll get themselves in the systems. They don't have to worry too much about sounding different, about settling in, understanding work politics. But there's that one thing that they'll always feel, that this is not their home. Because even if you were born here and you look different physically, you always feel like you're an underdog. And that's the reason why I struggled when I came here. I felt like I had to be beyond. I had to go one step lower than what I'll get back home, because I had to compensate being in the UK.
I want to agree with this sentiment, but also I don't, because it puts me, if I do agree, it puts me in the victim mindset, which I have worked very hard not to have. And the reason is because that mindset is a dangerous one. And I see it in a lot of people with the struggle. The reality of being an immigrant in a country like the US and Europe is that as a black person, you will face certain situations that could seem, and usually are, because of who you are and where you come from. That is true. That is not removed. The system is built in that way. There are people who are still beholden to the old way of doing things. I'm saying all that and also acknowledging that there are people, there are organizations, there are societies, there are cultures within these same countries that will take you for your competence, that will take you for your ability to build what you have to build. And beyond that, if you build a product, start a business that actually works, nobody cares who you are. In many ways, there are so many products, I think, that we purchase, we don't know whether those people are black or white. And what I mean by that is, although there may be a societal issue that still needs to be solved, that should not hinder people, or that should not make you think that you're less than. So, summarize this. Because somebody thinks that you're not capable doesn't mean that you're not capable. If anything, just be capable. I know it's easy to say, but in my experience, my personal experience, the more knowledgeable I am, the more competent I am, the less my position in a company or in a society has to do with how I look, but more what I can do. And I know it's a very black-white type situation, and it's probably one of, and I'm sure there's somebody else at the opposite spectrum of this table who will tell you that their whole life and their whole experience, they've been marginalized because of that. So this is a he say, she said, experience, opinion. I'm very much aware of that, but the thing that I really want to nail on is when you start thinking like a victim, you are more likely to become one. And vice versa. When you start thinking like a victor, you're also more likely to become one.
Sometimes you get a job that you deserve and you feel like you're just an immigration number because of things like equality, work equality, and you're feeling a gap because you're a black woman, perhaps, or an African. It's really tough. It is. And it's one thing that I wish that I knew before. I would have come to this country, studied and done what I had to do to make sure that I have the flexibility of taking maybe my kids back when we were younger and bringing them back older. That's what our parents did, most of our parents. But we live and we learn. But I want to ask you guys today, what advice, what would you say if you've managed to find that sweet spot?
I like this.
Where you have a good career that you can transfer skills. Maybe you've had a business or multiple businesses where you can be anywhere in the world, where your kids remember where they come from and will be happy to visit you in your retirement. Otherwise, in the UK or anywhere abroad, you might end up in a care home.
Actually, I want to answer the question before I move to the next section of the video. What, if you found a sweet spot where you can have a job that you can do anywhere, where you can get your kids to know your culture, the first thing that came to my mind is you can't have everything. You can't have everything. Or rather, there's this quote, you can have everything, but not all at the same time. I don't remember who said it, but I love that quote because I think it's true. You can have a lot of things. You can have everything, but not all at the same time. Another one that I like to think about is time versus money. People who have a lot of money tend to not have a lot of time. People who have a lot of time tend to not have a lot of money. So you're somewhere on that scale where you have just enough money to be able to pay for things, but not so much that you can pay for everything. This is what I'm not trying to say. She's already mentioned a couple of them. One of the things that she talked about is skills transfer. Having the right skills can enable you to create a business, create a product, work from anywhere. And it gets me to think of Naval. The podcast by Naval Ravikant is a venture capitalist in the US, where the title of the podcast is How to Be Happy and How to Get Rich and Happy. Something, how to get rich and be happy, how to get happy and rich. Anyway, it's about how to get rich and happy. I think that's the podcast. It's about 3 hours long. It's mini episodes that we all mashed together to make a 3-hour long podcast. One of the things that he talks about is leverage. Leverage, and he says in this current world, I think that was before AI, the two forms of leverage are either media or code. Media is this: YouTube, writing, text, video, photos, whatever it is that is media, that's media. And then code is programming. It's websites, it's building apps, it's building products. And I think now with AI, basically I think AI is the fusion of the two, because with AI as code, you can then pump a lot more media faster. So we live in a wonderful time right now where you don't need to become a programmer to build a website or a product. I saw this platform called Replit recently where you can go there and basically type like a prompt of an app that you want to build. It's not yet fully functional, still has some kinks, but bottom line is you no longer need to go and learn how to become a programmer to do these things. And when it comes to media, it's even worse. People have done all kinds of crazy things with ChatGPT. I don't like what they're doing with it, but if you are a decent writer, you can become an even better writer because of ChatGPT. If you're a decent programmer, you can build apps even faster with Replit and other tools. So what am I trying to say? Leverage. I think that being able to produce a product, a service, something that either solves a problem or saves time. So two ways to think about it. If you think about ideas, I read this thing recently, ways of ideation. So when you're coming up with ideas for a product or a business, what is a business that can solve a problem that you have? there's a likelihood that other people have that problem, right? So if you solve a problem that you have, you can then make it available for many people. And then the internet allows you to have that leverage, code or media. The second one is, what is a solution, something that saves people time? What is something that can make that saves people 10 minutes? If you can save people 10 minutes, because time is more valuable than money, as a whole other conversation, you can do that. Then that's just the money part, right? That's just the money conversation. That's the career, the job conversation. The kid conversation is very subjective because I'm not a parent. So whatever I'm saying is what I think. And usually people say, oh, you're only saying that because they have kids yet. So you don't know what you're talking about. But I'll still say it anyway. I think that the culture that we have from back home, we can pour that into our children, depending on the way that we are in the house. The house is a microcosm of the culture. The family is a unit of society. So I think what happens and what has happened with many parents is, and I'll say my parents did this, we have outsourced the raising of our children to schools. I went to boarding school, and I'm guessing that the assumption that my parents had was that when I go to boarding school, I'll learn all these things. I'll learn about Jesus. I'll learn about all that. It was a Catholic boarding school, which I don't think I learned about Jesus there, but I actually found Jesus later on. Bottom line is that many parents are not intentional about raising the children to imbibe in them those values. We allow society, we allow schools, we allow the government, we allow the church to do that. We don't take the responsibility. How can we? I mean, she just described it, right? You're working just to pay your mortgage, and you're doing all these things, so you have to be at work. So what I'm saying is there has to be a period of a lot more work where you start thinking, what will I need to be able to be more available in my house and be more present for my children? And they're going to be growing up fast. But how can I then make sure that this time while we are here, these evenings that we're spending together, when we're having Bible study time, when we're going to church on Sundays, during the weekends, how can I be so present in my children's lives that I can make sure that I'm raising them the way that I would like them to be raised if they were not in this country? How can I be so attuned to their needs that I can make sure that when I hear certain things that they're talking about, I can discuss with them and get them to trust me as their parents, to talk to me so that I can stop and I can squash some things early or encourage some things to bloom in them. Which, if you think about it, it will require that you as a parent clear your own trauma, grow your own self. It means you have to read, you have to study, you have to go to therapy if you have to go to therapy. You have to take care of your own self, take care of your health. You and your spouse have to discuss how these things work. If you don't have a spouse, I don't know what to tell, but yeah, it's going to be difficult. But bottom line is that it's not a single thing that you do. It's a couple of levers, right? You get better ideas to improve. You look at your current job, like, okay, what can I do in my job that will make my job easier? What skills do I need to acquire? What certification do I need to learn? Where else can I actually use my skills? Can I start a YouTube channel? Can I create a product? Can I do a podcast? Can I actually do a physical product? Can I do some, I don't know, drop shipping? What did I like as a child? So it's introspection that puts you in a position where you can find what you can do that would increase your financial income. And when you have more money, you tend to have more time, and you can use that time and invest in your kids, and you can create the culture in the house that you're looking for. So that's just a short version of it. I'm sure you're imagining what the long version will be. But let's finish the video first, all right?
Most of us don't want to think about that. We'd rather be home where your relatives look after you. Which relatives do we have left? Everybody's left. Think about this. If you're still a young person starting off life abroad, ask yourself, I've always said this, what are your long-term goals? Do you plan to remain here and maybe die here? Live with your grandkids and make this your home? Or do you really want to go back and get yourself a decent job? Or do you want to go back and settle home? It depends on what your plans are. But either ways, it's always a difficult question to ask. Is this happiness? Is this fulfillment? What would you rather do different? And is going abroad overhyped? I see my friends back home and they're living the life that I can only dream of. They have the best of both worlds. Were we a bit impatient? Did we have the wrong orientation? Did our governments fail us? There are loads of questions that I have no answers. But what I want to do is I want anybody who has taken the leap to live abroad and go and start afresh, especially at an older age, to reach out to me and tell me the story. I don't even mind traveling. I don't mind traveling to meet you wherever you are in the world, especially if you're an African who's made it abroad and gone back to your country to give back. Those are the stories that inspire me. So please, I'll put my email address at the bottom of this, and I'll wait to hear from anybody who has succeeded to crack the code, because we are in a matrix. You get a mortgage, you get stuck, you find it hard to live, and you're thinking this mortgage is my return for my kids. You have the kids, they don't want to go anywhere. They'll have the kids and they'll remain here. You even get to the point where you want to die and be buried here so that your grandkids can know where you are. You don't want to cut ties with your kids by going back home. It's difficult. You are in careers that you cannot even start looking for jobs where you come from. Business is difficult if you're not there. It's just hard to find that sweet spot. If you've done it, please share. But at the moment, I feel like, where do I go from here?
See, I think this is the perfect environment for God to work his miracle. I'm also just sensing a lot of, I want to say pain. That would just be preposterous. I don't know what you're dealing with. But I'm just getting a lot of this mindset that it's hard, it's difficult, it's tough. It's no matter how difficult the situation is, tell yourself that you're a child of God. I don't know where this is coming from. There is something about the words that we speak that tends to affect our situation. We can make things worse just by the things that we speak. Words are spirit, like the pastor likes to say. And a lot of what I'm hearing is that difficulty, which is probably your reality. It's probably the life. And I know that me sitting here and making all this noise and commenting and talking all that, I don't know your reality. Maybe you just said like 1% of what you've had to deal with. Like, I have no idea what you're dealing with. But what I know is that the fact that you're posting this video and you're asking questions and you're open to hearing, you want to travel and hear people, you haven't given up. And that right there is a kind of attitude that makes you a victor, not a victim. It's a kind of attitude that changes your story, because once you are alive, once there's life, there's hope. You have no idea where 5 years from now you could be. You have no idea where 10 years from now you could be. There's this example of Colonel Sanders in the US who started Kentucky Fried Chicken. He was 75 years old. It's a one-time thing. But 40 is young. Gary Vaynerchuk likes to say this: 40 is young. Life expectancy has increased. You're living in a country where you can actually get a lot of, health care. So personally, I haven't had children, so I cannot tell you what I think. But what I can say is that when I moved here, a lot of my plans failed. I've talked about it at length in the other channel, and I don't want to go into it. But the plans that I came with didn't work out. I had to start from scratch. I had to start from the bottom, getting my documents, beginning with part-time work, getting into position, and then where I am right now, 7 years ago, I would never have guessed that I could be in this position, which makes me even wonder, like, where will I be in 5 years from now? What I said earlier, so I'm going to say now again: if you increase your financial value, you increase how much money you can save, which will give you more time to be able to do the things that you want to do, which, from what I'm hearing, you want to imbibe your culture, your values into your kids. So I think those are two pieces of advice I would tell you is: start looking at problems that you can solve that will get you paid at scale, that's using leverage. And then when you get that money, maintain your living standards or drop lower, and then now invest in your children and time. It may not happen overnight. It will not happen overnight. Actually, it may. But if you're open to finding solutions, you will find them. Business is not hard. It's like saying that English is hard, or walking is hard to a baby, or driving is hard to somebody who hasn't driven. Business is a skill. In the beginning, it may be difficult because you're learning new things, you're understanding new concepts, you're figuring things out. But as you pick up the skills, sales, marketing, persuasion, design, branding, pitching, speaking, there are multiple skills that you will pick along the line. There will be failures that will teach you different things. But the most important thing, at least from my experience in business, is having a high risk tolerance, being able to take risks and being able to learn quickly from your mistakes. Those are things that you can learn. Every child is born and they have those things. When they fall, they get up and start walking again. But then as adults, once we fall, we beat ourselves up and we're like, oh, you're just a terrible walker. You can never walk for. Anyway, bottom line is that I think you are in the perfect position to be able to connect with people like this and produce something. You have a background in international relations. You are a parent. You are an immigrant. You have connections between the UK and your country of origin. So you have that cultural diversity. You're very eloquent. You have a lot of experience that you could share. I would say write a book. Start by writing a book. Start by doing a podcast where you invite other people where they share their story. And then you learn from them. And then you can use that to write, I don't know, a workshop. Create a workshop for other people who want to get acclimatized. Is that even the word? I don't know. People who are new to the country and want to get resources. So create the resources that you wish you had when you moved to the UK. You don't have to sell it. You can put it on your website, on your newsletter. People just download it. You can build this audience, and then maybe you ask them like, "Hey guys, I want to do a class to teach you the first things that I think you need to know when you're in the UK. Would you be willing to join the class? How much would you pay for it?" Somebody can tell you, "Oh, I'm going to pay $10, $20, whatever it is," and you begin there. And you start learning how to be a public speaker. Before you know it, you'll be on a stage somewhere speaking and getting paid to speak. Start somewhere, build upon it, get new skills, and the sky will just be your, what's it called? Starting point. Yeah.
It's freezing outside, it's the winter, it's snowed. And I'm just asking myself, is this the life I want to live for the next 25 years, working every day to pay off my bills? The bills just come and they go. The weather is horrible. I have no lease of life. I feel like I'm trapped in a country where I don't belong. Please, if you've made this share. I just had this thought today and I decided to share with you guys. I hope to hear from you. And like always, this is Lulu Diaries, where I share my opinion, what I'll tell my younger self, and sometimes I don't have answers to everything. And I'm sure that my listeners and my community, you guys, might have better ideas. But I want to tell stories. I want to visit people who have made it and share their stories to encourage that all hope is not lost and it's never too late to start afresh.
That's right.
I'm 41 now, and I think that my life has only started after 20 years of feeling trapped.
I like this.
Thanks if you've watched the video up to the end, and I'll be coming up with a few stories and a series which I cannot wait to share with you guys.
Now you're
If
talking.
this is the first time that you've seen one of my videos, please consider subscribing, because we share a lot of valuable information here, especially those of us in the diaspora trying to navigate life and get a decent living. Thanks again, and I'll see you in my next video. If you've not liked the video yet, give us a like, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.
So this is the thing, right? This is the thing. The energy at the end of the video wasn't very much felt throughout the video. I think I wanted more of that. I'm a very hopeful guy. I think no matter what happens in life, I always find hope somewhere. And I love hope. That's why I love Jesus, because he's hope. Because without him, there's nothing. All of this is pointless. I love hope. And for somebody who's gone through what she's gone through, I think that her underlying invitation to grow is going to put her far ahead. I think she's just getting started. 41 is young. 41 is young. It feels like only people who are old get to say that, but the fact that she's 41, which means she has 41 years of experience on this earth, that is worth a lot. The series she wants to start, man, this is great. This is wonderful. Yeah, I think it's wonderful. I'm glad I did the reaction. It's already almost 1 hour, this video. Hey, let me know what you think of this reaction. What do you think of the video? If you go watch the video, please go ahead and watch, subscribe to the channel, because I'm sure you'll probably be able to make some money through YouTube ads. Again, I have premium, so I don't have ads. That's why. But apart from the underlying, I say almost victim mindset, which I don't think that's the case, because she's clearly overcome a lot of those difficulties and she's still growing. Apart from that, I think this was a video that would be good. Let me see what people say in the comments. Let's see what the comments are saying. When I was young, it was everyone's dream to get to UK visa. But now that I've been to UK for 30 years, I can see that everyone who stayed at home is generally better off than those who went abroad. Because most of us only consider the financial aspect, but so many other things make life in Africa better than Europe. People are responding, no, they aren't better off. Money is needed everywhere you go. But go and ask them there. They will disagree and always ask for money. When you go there, you are living off British currency. That's why you think it's better. Go there, live on that currency. Then you will quickly remember that why you ever wanted to come to UK, the West to begin with, is because you've got it. You've now got it. That's why you probably don't appreciate it. Oh, on another note, I'm saying this as a British citizen who was born here. My mother got here through marriage to my father, who is British. I'm speaking from the lens of a citizen. I don't know what it's like for immigrants. Maybe it's harder. Who knows? Who said this? Wait, what are they responding to? I don't know sure anymore. This is a long question. You're right. Lots of what. Anyway, I'm glad I left the UK a week after writing my last exam. No regret at all. The things new immigrants don't realize about abroad: the loneliness, lack of community, no relatives, no events or parties, difficulty finding a marriage mate because everyone is chasing pounds. I now understand how some people actually die on their own in their house and nobody notices for months or years. Man, that is rough. Yeah, learning to count our blessings makes us thankful and less complaining. You have a husband, 4 children, roof over your head, good health, a career. In fact, you're better off than 80% of your peers. Peers. You should be grateful. Okay, I get the message. I don't think she's not grateful. I don't think it's supposed to watch the whole video, but okay, it's fine. It's like, exactly, you guys are missing it. She isn't ungrateful, but an institution that she regrets, which is not living in her mother's land. You won't understand it until you're in her shoes, so please quit judging. Right? Coming from, I can't really say much. It's like 15 years. Yeah, so 20 years in UK this year, clean dishes in the restaurant in evenings, work toilet in a nightclub 3 nights a week, 3 hours studying and then sitting in prison. No big regrets. Did what I had to do and got certified where I am. Hey, listen, that's life, right? You do what you have to do and you figure it out. I think I spoke a lot. This was supposed to be a short reaction video. This was like a 17-minute video and I've come and talked for Africa. So I'm going to go away now and you can tell me what you think in the comments. Leave a link to a video that you'd like me to react to. My name is Kamga Reacts. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.